Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Not Too Comic Book. This being a show where we talk about TV shows that are adaptations of comic books. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about Superman and Lois Season 4, Episode 6. Great episode. A lot of really interesting things went down in this episode, so let's break it down. So picking up in the aftermath of the whole Elizabeth situation, our boy Lex is giving in to his anger. Once again, this is probably like the angriest Lex Luthor we've ever seen. I know, and it's been an interesting conversation because I think people's issue with this version of Lex is because it's not what most traditional versions of Lex is, but it's always a thing of you have to do very different versions. It's like a very different opposite spectrum of like John Cryer's, because that's like the most recent version. Well, no, I guess like Titus Welliver's, but once again, we only got one episode and really didn't get to know him. But yeah, this whole like, because that one was like the most like squirmy Weasley version, and this is like the angry version, because once again, he went to prison. He didn't get reformed. He had tons of anger that's been built up for the past 17 years. Now, the one thing that kind of kept him sane, which is kind of crazy to think about all the evil stuff he's done post getting out of prison, and, you know, the one thing holding him back was his daughter, and now that she's like, I'm done with you, he's going off the edge. He's burning her photos, all the research he had done on her, just because he's smashing up the motel/hotel room he's staying in. It's like going berserk, to the point Amanda comes like, yo, like, are you good? And he's like, yeah, I'm fine. And he even tells her like, yo, it wasn't just Elizabeth, you were also, your loyalty is another thing that kept me going. So I need this, we're gonna build, we're gonna buy some land, and basically he's gonna build the main office of LexCorp here, once again, just to bother Lois's family, which is interesting too, because like Lois came and said that, and like the guy they're dealing with was like, wait, is this true? And Amanda was like, don't even worry about it. But what Lois said to her in that moment did get to her, because it's like, that man is unstable. Oh, he didn't tell you about things not working out with his daughter? It's like, yeah, he had a chance to walk away, and he chose me. His obsession over me, over his family. And you see, like, Lex, like, he will drag you down with him. It's like, what's going to happen when the two of you don't see eye to eye? And what she said did get to Amanda, because, like, the man she knew that she pretty obviously seemed like she has feelings for, was kind of slipping away, because the way she said, like, she'd basically been running LexCorp, and like, because obviously he's been away for 17 years, but she, I guess, took over like 10 years ago and has been running the business since. And she's like, and he's like, yeah, you made millions. And she says, because for our future, or what, for us. And she had to stop herself, because I was like, oh, so that's why you're so loyal to Lex, because you're like, you love him. But that's the thing of, nothing will ever compare to his obsession. Because normally, and that's interesting, because I don't know if that always allocates to, like, because typically the character is obsessed with Superman, and I'm curious, does it always, obviously, once again, you take the Harley Quinn animated series, and they took that to the degree that obsession in the most, like, effed up, like, hilarious way, but you take something like this, where it's like his obsession isn't just about Clark, it's about Lois. In fact, I think Lois has more of his ire than Clark does. But once again, it's a package deal where it's like, the person I hate most in the world, Superman, is with the other person I hate most in the world, Lois. It's just like all my rage, it's for these two beings are like together too, so it makes it that much easier just to be like, nah, I hate both of your guts. You're a package deal type of situation, so. Yeah, Lex is definitely becoming more and more unhinged this episode, because he was just waited in Lana's office for like 30 minutes. And Lana was like, yeah, I'm not going to like sign that deal. He's like, okay, I'm only warning you once. It's like, the fact is, he's like, oh yeah, like that security system. He's like, yeah, it looks like something a friend of mine made. But he was like, yeah, but even that didn't help him when the time came. I was like, ooh. Which I was like, did we know Bruno was the one who actually killed John, but I guess Lex had dealings with John at some point in time too, and it's like, I was like, at first I was like, is he implying he killed him? I was like, no, he didn't. That was definitely Bruno. But I was like, oh, but I guess he's kind of like, yeah, I mean, it still didn't help him when the time came, so it won't help you. And how, not very fortuitous, but like obviously foreshadowing what was to come. So, but either way, some other elements we have throughout the episode. We have Jonathan going hard in the paint. He's like flying all over the place, like saving the day. He's kind of, and it ends up being that conundrum with the whole Superman of it all too, where it's like, are you doing more harm than good? Like just living your life as Clark Kent when you should be out there being Superman all the time. Like I know that can be a criticism against the character sometimes, but it's like you do have a life. There is supposed to be a work-life balance. Cops aren't on duty 24/7, but some people would probably make the argument. It's like, well, you have this power, you have a greater responsibility, like you can keep going forever, but it is that situation where Jonathan's kind of taking it to that degree where it's like, all right, I do want to help. I just want to go out there, do my thing, And obviously Jordan's kind of stuck at home and is like, yeah, his dad's like, I appreciate your responsibility of like, hey, you have the wherewithal to say like, hey, I need to take a step back from the whole superhero thing, but you can't sit around playing video games all day. And his mom's like, hey, why don't you get a job so you can work alongside Sarah? And he immediately dashes away, and Clark being like, yeah, he is right. That is getting old. I love that. So that's an interesting thing where it's just like Jonathan's kind of burning candles at both ends. And I'm curious if that's something Clark ever dealt with in this continuity. We don't know. Whether like maybe in his younger years he was burning the midnight oil doing the Superman thing and eventually it kind of, wore him out. It's all about finding that work-life balance. And that's probably, it's something you kind of have to learn, firsthand. And it is a lesson that Jonathan kind of learns this episode. But really quickly, staying on Clark really quickly, I love the whole thing of we find out he's getting older. He's getting a little gray. He's like, what? And she's like, stop looking at me. He's like, I'm not. And he later on is at the store buying hair dye, and Lana catches him with it. He's trying to shove it in his pocket, and he even puts it on later on. And Lois is like, you don't need to do that. She's like, I could smell it over there. And for him, it's just, the thing of, he always like wanted to just be human when he first had his powers. He never wanted to be anything different. But now it's like, right, it's been a part of you for so long, and now you're feeling a little less than yourself. You're feeling more human, and Lois is like, right, you just didn't expect all the baggage that would come with it. And it is a thing of, it is also coming at the most unopportune time because you have to deal with Lex. Granted, you're not dealing with Doomsday as much, but once again, he's still out there, so that's something to be contended with. Like, we don't know if that has been completely removed from the board or what. That's, I doubt we're done with Doomsday, but maybe we are. I don't know. I don't know how that's going to play out going forward, but he's definitely not working with Lex. Like, Lois was able to convince him to leave, but beyond that, we don't know. But for Clark, it's just, like I said, it's just not the opportune time with Lex being a big, massive threat that I'm like, okay, so I'm not as strong as I was. My hearing isn't what it used to be either. I mean, it's just, for the first time, Superman's really had to worry about mortality. And he's like, I'm getting old. And she's like, no, you're getting older. And she's like, the good thing about it is we get to kind of age gracefully together. He's like, yeah, there's a silver lining to it. I was like, I love that. That's kind of neat because as a Kryptonian, they even made that point when like, in Supergirl about how like, because Tyler Hoechlin's Superman is supposed to be a little older than what Tyler actually is himself. So, because like he was cast in his 30s. I don't know if he's like even 40 yet. He might be, but at the time when he was cast, he was like on the younger side, but they were making the whole point of, he just ages slower as a Kryptonian. So that was kind of their way of writing around that. But now they get to kind of age together. Because like, the one version of Superman I know is like Kingdom Come Superman has the whole gray streak situation, but that's because obviously he's been around for a hot minute. So I just think that's such a fascinating element to this. I didn't really think about the fact is of like, you aren't just weak, you are a lot more human now, and you are going to probably start aging like a human. So maybe by the time we get to the end of this series, he'll have a little bit more gray in his hair. I don't know. Once again, it's just this whole Superman isn't the character you thought you'd have to really worry too much about him. I mean, it comes at a time like, right, you had to worry about your mortality, and the fact is, you died. You died for a little while, and now you came back, and you're a little different. You're a little more mortal than you were before. So that's an interesting conundrum that the Clark of this universe would have to kind of contend with, even beyond this final season. But also, Clark has to deal with the fact is more and more people know about his secret. Like he runs into the girl that who knows their secret, and she's just like her heart's beating, and Clark is almost like, "Why is she so nervous?" She's like, "Yeah, sure, whatever you need." And then later on, when Lana and him are talking to the lady who land Lex is trying to buy, they're trying to convince her not to do it, and he's like, she's asking Clark like, "Is he a bad guy?" And he's like, "Yeah." And she's like, "Well, after all that you've done for like Smallville and just the world, I'll go along with what you want." And it's like, wait, does she know? And it's like, yeah, she does. And also, so does Coach Gaines, because he comes to the kids. He's like, "Yo, you guys ready for football season?" And Jonathan's like, "I was literally banned from football." I was like, "We'll work around that. What about you, short stuff, curly Q or whatever?" And it's like, what? He's like, "Yeah, considering what you can do, you could get, you could reach this heights in football, get all the girls." It's like, what? It's like, every time once again, everyone in Smallville is going to know the truth by the end. Like, the murmurs are spreading. I'm like, to be fair, it was such a public thing. They weren't really thinking. Lana did what she could to kind of like control like the small crowd that was around when the whole situation with Doomsday happened, and like at the end of episode 1 throughout the episode into episode 2. But it's like, yeah, word is spreading. I mean, Lex hasn't pulled the trigger on that yet, but he might eventually. Like, that might be what the setup is at the very end of the episode, where it's just like, he's been so focused on his personal revenge that he's kept that secret in his back pocket. So I'm curious to see if that's going to be something they end up doing. It's like, well, you could always destroy Superman by like putting a bullseye on him, not just by you, but the entire world, by telling people, "Yo, this is who Superman is," and put him under a bigger spotlight. Because I brought up the point previously that I hadn't really thought about, of like, right, in the Bizarro world, they were out. Like, Clark was known, like the entire family were celebrities. They were famous, so I don't know what's going to happen in this regard. I don't know if you can put that genie back in the bottle. Like I said, it could end with people in Smallville knowing, but not the greater world. That's a whole thing in itself. So we'll have to wait to see where things kind of go on that front. But yeah, Lex was not too happy when that lady wasn't going to sell her land. He's like, I will renegotiate whatever you want, fine. And Lana's like, "Yo, you need to leave." He's like, "Stay out of this." He can't keep his temper cool, because he's like, so much is not going the way he wants. Even though he wants to pretend like, oh, everything's going according to plan, everything is slipping through his hands. It's not working out, and just it's making him angrier and angrier, and he's becoming blinded by rage. And so she was like, he's like, "Fine, I will give you 10 mil. I will give everyone in here 10 mil if you decide to agree to this." And she looks to some of the other townsfolk. One of the guys is like, "Do not do this. Something doesn't feel right." It's like, if he wants it this bad, it can't be for any good. And she turns it down. And it's like, that's when Amanda was kind of like, "Yo, you're going a little crazy, Lex." And Lex gave her an ultimatum: either you're with me or you're with them. And there is no middle ground in this situation. So the real kick in the teeth is, I figured he was going to make a move. I was like, yo, there's so many people he's pissed at, but it makes sense the person he'd go after right now is Lana, because she's at the forefront. Because he also knows how important she is to the Kent family, but also just in general, you're in my way, and anyone and anything that gets in my way, I deal with it. So he sent Otis to kill her. Literally had the gas on in her house. And luckily Lana woke up, and he like started tossing her around and was ready to strangle her if like Sarah didn't come out with bat in hand swinging like a slugger, dude. But luckily it all worked out okay. But it's like, that's the most scariest thing, is like throughout the entire scenes, every time you see Lana after that, you see the deep imprint on her neck. You can see where he was strangling her. She's like, Jesus, to the point she couldn't even talk. And obviously she's scared, because it's like, if I hadn't woken up, it wouldn't have just been me, it would have been Sarah too. And Clark lost it. He went over to Lex and just like in the middle of the street screaming out his name, and they tussled. It's like he has all these red lamps set up on the street, like this was all part of his plan to draw Clark out, because I don't think he knows that Clark is a lot weakened upon coming back, but he knew at least, hey, I can weaken you, put us on a even playing field. But it's like, yo, you not only came after my family, you killed Sam, now you're coming after my best friend and her daughter. It's like, fuck that. And they brawl out, and he was getting his licks in, but so was Clark, just duking it out to the point like the Kent family shows up and Clark is whooping that ass. It's just like, yeah, yeah, yeah. It's so neat just getting to see him like brawl out. Yeah, he's a little messed up, but he whoops Lex's ass. But Lex is laughing because I thought he was going to record this whole thing and kind of destroy Clark's reputation in that regard. But it was more so like, nah, I want your family to see you, because he's like, see, he's like, I always knew what was there. I knew Superman was a facade. This is who you really are, and now they see you for who you are. Which his kids are proud of him, but Clark is disappointed in himself because once again it always goes back to that conversation that's always been something he's tried to instill in his kids. Never lose your cool. Like he's always like, I'm too powerful to ever lose myself like that, but this man is trying me over and over again. And for him, it's like he knew in that moment. He even says later on, no one won. It's like, because even Lois is like, yeah, like Lex kind of got the upper hand. He might have gotten his ass whooped, but he was able to get your dad to sink down to his level, and that's what he wanted. But the kids were like, yo, he deserved the ass whooping. It's like, you went full Mortal Kombat on him. Clark Kent wins. Which, once again, funny and interesting and all that, because like, well, NetherRealm made the Injustice games, which are, so it's the Mortal Kombat team making those games. So it's just, once again, those conversations always kind of run deeper when Mortal Kombat's brought up. And obviously Jordan played, I think, Injustice in the first season or whatever. But either way, stuff like that's kind of funny. But yeah, it is that thing, because it's not just Clark that was feeling like utterly powerless in that moment and just angry because of what happened to Lana. So did Jordan and Jonathan, because for them it's like Jonathan's like, yo, I was like going too hard into pain and I wasn't listening out for your mom screaming for help. And Jordan was like, yo, I've been taking a step back, because he's like, because Jonathan had brought up like, yo, like I wouldn't be going so hard in the paint if you would, you know, go out there with me. But for Jordan, it's like, yeah, but if I do that, I'm just going to end up doing more harm than good, because every time I try to help, I just do things wrong. Once again, it's like you both been trying to handle things on your own, but it's like, right, you can kind of pick up the slack for each other. That's why I was like, that's going to be the interesting thing of like, kind of got like a spoiler about something later on, so I won't talk about it until it comes up in the show. But I'm like, yeah, you two need to work together. Like, don't let it just be one Superboy. Let it be Super Boys, you know? So, but this whole situation has convinced Jordan. It's like, right, doing nothing is just as bad. So it's like, right, I have to kind of get out there. Like, because he just wanted to, you know, do something. But it's like, it is a thing of, I can't just sit on the sidelines forever just wallowing. Like, I do need to, like, doing nothing, like, can be just as bad as like kind of messing up. You know, that's why we have each other's back, so we can compensate for each other. When one might slip up, we have the other one to catch us before we fall, type of situation. And Jonathan, it's like, got to find that balance. And if there's two of you, then that makes it easier, especially because they also do have to compensate for the fact is their dad isn't as strong as he was. Like, his powers are waning. We'll actually have to see too, because I'm making this whole point of like, he'll kind of stay in his state. Maybe it might be a situation of he might get supercharged and kind of go back by the end of the series. Or maybe it, like I said, maybe this is just his permanent state in this continuity. So, but yeah, it is just a situation of like, they all feel a responsibility for this whole situation, but it's like, no, the person to blame in this situation is Lex. And this whole situation did end with him leaving Smallville because it wasn't the victory he thought it would be. Well, he wasn't able to build his corporation here. The town's kind of rejected you. Plus, you didn't get that small victory against Clark like you were hoping you did. You kind of did, but it still ended with your ass getting whooped. And it's because for him, he's like, yo, Clark ended up being stronger than I thought he was. It's like, that's the thing. Clark is in a weakened state under some red lights, still whooped that ass. Because I guess his physiology, despite being hampered, is still the thing of, yo, I've been fighting bad guys for years. You might have been in hardcore prison, but dude, I've had to fight every day of my life. So like, some of that's going to stick, red sun light or not, you know? But also just maybe physiology, like even at a base level, even though his powers have been hampered, like even with the red lights, he's still above a regular human. So he's like a notch above. So that probably gave him the upper hand. So, you know, maybe some of that kind of counts in that moment. Another angle to this episode was the whole, you know, and this kind of ties into the Jordan and Jonathan of it all, is Sarah kind of feeling a little stuck. Because obviously she got the job at the diner because it was punishment for the drunk driving car accident and stuff. And obviously, at the time, Jordan wanted a job there just to kind of do something. But she's like, you have powers. You could go anywhere in the world. He's like, yeah, but you don't need powers to kind of go anywhere. And so she ended up talking to Lana about it, which understandably, Lana doesn't want her daughter away from her. And it's like, yeah, I don't know if I'm ready to let you go with everything going on. But also, it's like, it's understandable too, considering Lana has stayed her entire life. She's lived in Smallville forever. So it's just kind of like, and that's sadly not a life. I mean, who knows? Sarah could always leave and come back. Look at Clark. He left and came back eventually. So it could be a situation that comes full circle in that capacity. But, but with the way things kind of play out, she wants Sarah to leave. But Sarah's like, I don't want to do that while, like, with everything going on. But it's like, it's kind of the best time. It's like, I want you to live your life and do what you want to be happy. So she talks to Jonathan and Jordan about it. And they're going to take her around. They're like, yeah, decide where you want to study abroad. It's like, right. The Greek Islands? Greek Islands, and they both take off with her, so her kind of getting to experience. I was like, have either one of them flown with her before? I can't remember. I'm sure Jordan probably has in the past, but maybe I'm misremembering. But at the end of the day, like I said, Lex is gone, but Amanda has chosen to stay by his side, and she's like, right, you're going about this the wrong way. And she's like, no, I'm not talking about, like, stitching yourself up and stuff. Like I said, like, I guess because it's like, right, which is so poetic considering he's like, oh, like, she's like, you're doing this alone. And he's like, yeah, I think he said I was doing this alone. It's like, right, he has someone in his corner just like Clark has someone in, like, that's the thing. You're not going up against one person individually. He's trying to go up against Superman. Well, Superman has an entire family. Trying to go up against Lois. Lois has an entire family. So it is a thing of they make the perfect team because they have each other's back. They've been a team for a while. You've been kind of a solo act on your evil bad guy thing. So, so now he has Amanda by his side. I think things are definitely going to shift. So I think he's definitely going to be staying in Metropolis, but it's going to be interesting to see how this ultimately ends up playing out. Like I said, I don't know if like Clark's secret as Superman is going to be the key that they're going to use against him. Like, what are they going to do now? They have Otis at the DOD, but there's no guarantee he's going to talk. There's still Cheryl out there in the wind. So also the guy they handed over wasn't last episode. It was the episode before last. No, it was last episode, I believe. I can't remember now. No, it was definitely the episode before last. Sorry, I'm all over the place. But he hasn't talked either, so no one's willing to turn on Lex. And in fact, now Amanda's doubled down on helping Lex. So we'll see how that all shapes up, how this all plays out, what Lex has planned next. Obviously, we're down to the wire. Only a few episodes left. What is it? 4? Yeah, 4 episodes left, and no telling how this... Well, I mean, it's going to have a happier ending, but where we go from here and what the finale actually looks like, I'm so curious to see what happens next. But really, that's all I want to talk about. So the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day and goodbye.